Okay, cool. All right. So everyone, thank you for coming to, we're recording right now, by the way. So everyone, thank you for uh, joining us for our Wednesday dev session. I want everyone to give a warm, you know, a big, give your hand to Jackson, who's going to talk about some few stuff about Node. And yeah, so get excited. All right, cool. Jackson, floor is yours.
Can you let me share screen?
Yeah, sure. Sorry about that. Okay, cool. All right. Again, okay, take it away.
Okay, can everyone see this?
Yep.
Okay, so tonight we're gonna be talking about Node.js. Just a slight intro, just to get everyone acquainted with it. So what is Node.js? Node.js is a JavaScript runtime that's built on Chrome's V8 JavaScript engine, which is actually originally written in C++. It's event-driven and it's a non-blocking input-output model, so it makes it lightweight and efficient. And it actually has one of the best, one of the largest ecosystems for packages and modules, open source libraries. If you look right here on the bottom right, you'll see that based off the open source libraries, you'll see that Node is like definitely up there compared to the other popular languages. There are some misconceptions. Some people think that Node.js is a programming language. It's not. They use JavaScript, right? And it's also not a framework. Okay, so it's the JavaScript runtime. And some of you might be a little confused, like what is a JavaScript runtime? We'll go over with that in a little bit. So why should anyone use Node? Well, some top companies that use Node is like Netflix, LinkedIn, as you can see here, and it's fairly new, so it's definitely up there. So if you want to learn something on Node, it's a good time to jump in. So before we really go into depth about Node, let's give a brief history. So back in 1995, JavaScript, well, it was initially called LiveScript. Before JavaScript was called JavaScript, it's called LiveScript. And they made it so they allowed people to actually manipulate web pages dynamically and create like interactive UIs and all that. Those made by Netscape to be used inside their browser. Fast forward later on in 2008, Google came up with their own JavaScript engine called the V8, and they used it for the Chromium web browsers. And it's really fast. So a lot of people have been using it, and a lot of browsers have been adopting it, as you'll see later on. In 2009, a guy named Ryan Dahl actually wanted to be able to execute JavaScript outside of the browser. So remember, JavaScript, its main purpose initially was to just create dynamic interactive UI within the browser. But this guy had the idea that maybe if we can take the V8 engine, take it out, we can run JavaScript outside of the browser. And that was like a game changer. And then a guy named Isaac Schluter came along, and he was like, this is awesome. Let me create an ecosystem that allows people to share code. So he created NPM, which is what we use in a lot of our projects. So what the heck is a JavaScript engine? What is V8? So JavaScript engines basically allow you to convert your JavaScript code into native machine code, which can then be executed by your computer. So these are the browsers, popular browsers that we have today, minus a few. And you can see over here, you can see what engines that they use. So Google Chrome uses V8, and so do quite a few of them, Brave and Edge. Well, the new Edge. Edge Legacy actually used Chakra back then as well, and they deprecated that. And Safari and Mozilla, they use their own JavaScript engines. So what's the difference between a browser and Node.js? Well, it's the ecosystem, right? The JavaScript runtime is different. In a browser, we have web APIs, right? Which gives us things like the DOM. You can use fetch, geolocation, cookies, console, right? Remember, console isn't part of JavaScript. It's a separate thing that's provided in the browser. Node also has the console, so you're able to do console log things as well when you use Node as well. But the main purpose of Node is that you can create servers, you can access the file, like local files, change files, read, write, and the operating system as well. So these are some links which I'll share towards the end, so you guys can take a look at what Node and browsers have. So I made this little drawing thingy for you guys to see what the runtime. It's overly simplified. There's a lot more that goes into this, but as you can see, the browser is on the left side. This is the engine, the V8 engine. So for example, we're using Chrome. So we're using the V8 engine, and there's like a call stack. Donat kind of went over it in our previous talks, and there's an event loop. The difference between Node is that because we're not in a browser environment, we actually use a library called libuv, which is written in C++. And because it's written in C++, we're actually able to perform actions such as like modifying, reading, updating files on your computer and on the computer. The browser doesn't have any of this stuff, so you cannot access files on your computer, whatnot. I mean, nowadays you can, but it would ask you like, it would ask you something like, can we access your local files and whatnot? But generally you can't really do that on a browser. So which is why Node is such a game changer. It allows you to change things on the system itself and run JavaScript outside of the browser. So you'll see that there's a Node core, and this basically is written functions written in JavaScript and C++. So we have like the FS core, which is file system core, and that's what allows us to modify files on the computer itself. So let's go into Node modules. So we've been using modules a lot. So anytime we install something, that's a third-party module. We're using npm to install like Material UI, right? Or what's another one? Just a bunch of them. And the core modules is actually distributed with Node. So when you first download Node, you actually get these core modules. You don't need to do npm install and then the module name. It's already comes packaged with Node, right? And this allows us to create servers and do read-write operations and even more, right? Local modules are things that we create ourselves. So when we're working on our React project, one thing we're doing is import X, Y, and Z from the path, right? So those are local modules. And you'll see that the syntax is a little different from Node and when we were working on a React project or something. Because React, we're using import. In Node, we're going to use something called require, right? Because Node uses the common, I believe it's called the common JS syntax. So we're using something called require instead of export, default, or import. And surprisingly enough, we're actually using Node quite a bit, especially under the hood. Anytime so remember, Node is what allows us to read and write files in our system. So anytime you do npm install, you're actually downloading things. It actually starts a Node process under the hood, and you don't see this. This is the source code from npm install. And you'll see that it's actually requiring FS, which is one of the core modules in Node. So is util. And it's actually using this to write, using it to copy from the internet, from the npm registry and download into our project. Another thing is the scripts that we use, React scripts. So React scripts uses Webpack, I believe. under the hood. And Webpack actually uses Node under the hood to build your website when you run npm run start. So it actually does a build process. It writes the files, creates the files, minifies it, and then you're able to actually run it using other processes. So yeah, we actually use Node quite a bit. So now that we're done talking about Node, what it really does and whatnot, I feel like now's a good time to kind of show you how we can create a little mini server and what we can do using Node if we have time. If we have time, yeah, going a little quick. So now's a good time. So we can go into our IDE. So the only thing that I have right here is in this folder. Can you guys see this? I'm not sure you guys can see it.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So right now, all we have is just a JS file. So we're gonna spin up a really quick mini server, and then I can show you ways we can interact with files, what we can do to create files. So like I said, in Node, the thing we want to do, it comes with core modules. So one core module that a lot of people use when they're spinning up a server is called the HTTP module. I'll give you a link to show you all the APIs that Node has towards the end. So let's start with HTTP. So we want to require this, right? Instead of import, we gotta use require, right? I believe in the newer Node versions, they do support using import, but it's still like, I believe it's still under testing and whatnot. So it's not really stable yet. So to spin up a server, HTTP comes with a create server, and it takes, so remember Node is event driven. So I didn't really go into the event loop as much, but it's a huge topic. So if you want to study the event loop, you'll find out that Node is event driven. So usually we use things like callbacks for like almost every function in Node if you start using Node. So one thing the HTTP module has is we can create a server, and it'll take a callback that takes in two objects, request and response. So we can do something like this here. We can just call this the server. And to actually, so for Node, it will actually close if we do something like this. So if I were to run this app using Node, you'll see that it'll close right after it runs through the code, it just closes. So in order to keep this open, we actually have to listen, do something like listen. So if we do server.listen on port 3000, that's a common port we use. You'll see that it doesn't go to the next line because during the event cycle, it's constantly listening for something on port 3000. So this is how you would keep the server running. And what else can we do? So if we go onto our website, let's say we go to localhost 3000. It doesn't do anything because we're not actually doing anything within this. So if we console log our request, and we have to restart the server, you'll see that there is a request object that was sent right here. And we can do quite a few things. Like, so one thing that we like doing is checking the URL. So the request object actually has a URL that we can check. We can even check the methods as well. So it could be something like .method. We can console log these so we can see what the URL is. So URL. Let's test this out. So if you're familiar with the browser, browsers only do GET requests, especially if you're typing, only if you're typing here. If you submit a form, you can change those to like post request or put and all that. But if you're using just the URL link, that'll only be a GET request. So you can see right here, this console logged, the URL is just this. And let's see. The next thing we can do is we can set these routes. So remember, this isn't using a framework. This is just Node by itself. So it's not going to look that pretty. You can do something like if URL is equal to this, right? And method is equal to get. We can actually send back HTML using this. So have you ever heard of like server-side rendering? This is how someone would actually do it. So if you use like, I believe Next.js does something like this, right? They usually render HTML through the server. So here's what we can do. We can send back some HTML. So we have to do something like response, and we're able to write what we want to send back. So we're going to send back HTML. And it looks really bad, right? Because we got to write each line, which is kind of annoying. So I can do this. So I actually copied, I wrote something earlier. This is a form that has an input. So, and then we have to end it to actually send it. So let's restart our server, go back here. And this is our little HTML form. So you look on the network, we'll see that we sent our response back, which is this, which is literally what we wrote here. So now, in order to do a post request, we just got to make sure the method is equal to post, right? So the action is sending it to a route post. Right? And the method is equal to post. And because, so this is interesting. When you do a post request, have you ever heard of streaming and buffering? These are things that happen when you send a body across, right? When we're doing a post request, we're actually we're trying to send data back to our server. So in order to send data back, we can't send a huge chunk of data, especially if it's like a huge file or something along the lines of that. What really happens is we do something called buffering. So if you ever like stream the YouTube video, this is one of the things we do. So imagine this is your data that you're trying to send back. Instead of sending the huge chunk, right? We actually send it in as little pieces of data, right? So if you watch Netflix, right? We don't wait for the whole movie to be sent and then watch it. We actually watch bits and pieces of it. So how they do this is using something called a buffer. So think of a buffer as a bucket that will collect bits and pieces of data. And once that bucket is filled, it will send it as a small chunk to our TVs or whatever we're watching to our computers. And we're able to watch that piece and it will continue to do this because it's streaming as well. So it keeps filling up the bucket and keeps sending us chunks or pieces of it to us. And eventually we can just keep watching the video without interruption, right? So this is how this works under the hood. So to check these chunks, one thing we do is we add a events emitter, right? So if we do something like, I believe it's response on, do something like, so on data, we're actually able to listen for something like this, and it'll take in a callback. And the callback listener is going to be a chunk. We call it a chunk, or like a piece of data that we're trying to get from our post request. And I can console log this chunk for us to see what it looks like. So we go back to our website, and I were to send something like, hey, everyone. And I go back to our server. I guess it didn't work. So let's see what happened. Method equals post. Oh, request not on, sorry, not response. So let's go back here. So, hey, everyone, submit that. And you'll see this little weird object, this chunk called the buffer, or that little bucket, right? So it gets crazy. If I were to send, so right now it's only a small text file, right? But if I were to send something like this thing is huge, right? There's a lot of text that I just copy and pasted. You'll see how the data gets broken up. You'll see there'll be a bunch of buffers that happen. So if I just send this huge text and submit this, you'll see there's a bunch of buffers that are sent down here. So it breaks it up into pieces. And that's how we were able to watch our videos. Like we watch a little bit, we watch a little bit. So this is actually pretty cool because like I said, it allows us to watch videos in bits and pieces. And in order, if you want, you can actually wait for the whole file, the whole buffer to combine them together and create what we wanted in the first place. So one thing we do is we can do something like this. We can create a body and just keep adding these chunks to the body. So we can like, what's going on? We can push this into the body itself. So we'll push this, and then we can also add a new event emitter. So on end, when we're done receiving all the data, right? We can do something like parse body equals buffer. So this is a object that's provided by Node globally. You don't have to require this. So buffer concat body. So we're gonna concat everything inside the body, which is an array with chunks or buffers. And then we can string it. And then we can console log what parse body is. So let's do something like, we'll use that really big file string, I mean. And you'll see that it concats everything. This is crazy because it's a really big file. Now I think it's still going. Nope, it's good. So you see that you're concatenating all these buffers together, and now we're getting back this huge string that's a little crazy. Normally we're not going to do this, but if you're doing like a video, you wouldn't wait for the whole movie to buffer anyways. So now we can actually use a new module, another core module that Node provides. And this will showcase like how we can actually write files on our computer or on our system or wherever this Node process is running. So there's a thing called FS, which is the same as file system. And this is what they use. So after this is done, we can do something like write file sync. And we can make a new file. So let's call it message. We want the file to be a text file, right? And then the second thing would be what we're trying to input. So parsed. So maybe you can do something like this. So if you look, make sure you pay attention to here. So when we run this and I submit something, you'll see that there will be a new file called message.txt that gets created here. So let's see. Let's do something simple like, hey. So you see this right here? This was just created using the file system modules from Node. And this is what we get. It takes the key and the value of it. So this is like Node in a nutshell. There's a lot more that we can do right now. Obviously, it doesn't look that great, but that's because we're not using any frameworks. One really popular framework that we use and we're currently using with our project is Express. And this will actually do a lot of this under the hood and clean it up. So you'll be able to do something like, I believe like app.get, instead of writing if URL equals this method is equal to get, right? It'll cover a lot of that, abstract it, and make it much more readable for us. Yeah, so this is Node in a nutshell. I hope you guys enjoyed this.
Nice. I love that. I learned a lot. I really like how you kind of like dove deep into the whole Node.js thing without using Express. Sorry if I'm like talking like if I sound like I have a cotton in my mouth, it's because I do. All right. I just got my tooth extracted for those who just came in. So I'm all right though. I think the bleeding's under control. Anyways, this is not about me. Does anyone have does anyone have a questions, concerns, comments? I really love to talk. Thank you, Jackson. No, no questions.
Uh, No question. I just wanted to say thanks. And I was sort of trying to follow along. So I got as far as like console logging the method. So yeah. So thanks. It was
Okay,
really clear. Thanks, Jackson.
cool, cool. Hey, Alfie, thanks for joining us. All right, so so next week, I think it's gonna be an open topic kind of thing. Right, so it's gonna be Donut, Jackson, and Alfie that's probably gonna be doing the presentation. I'm not really sure what kind of topic that they're um gonna do. I think just I guess we'll work amongst yourselves on like what topics you want to talk about or whatever. You know. All right. Does that sound good? Cool. All right. I'm gonna let you guys and girls go before I start bleeding over here and yeah. So have a good night. Take care. Bye.
Good night, guys.